On December 4th, 2024, the CEO of United Healthcare was murdered in midtown Manhattan, and millions of Americans sympathized with his killer. So much so, the alleged assassin has inspired a sort of folkloric admiration.
The Luigi Brigade. 24 female admirers strode into a Manhattan courtroom to show their support for Luigi Mangione.
To understand why, we need to examine two other murders. The first is a mob hit that happened almost 39 years earlier to the day and just 1 mile away outside Sparks Steakhouse. The assassination of Gambino family Mafia boss, Paul Castellano.
The bullets that ended Big Paul Castellano's life last night may very well have been a payoff for getting into such trouble with the feds.
Known as the boss of bosses, Castellano was the head of a criminal empire. Brian Thompson, by contrast, was the CEO of a perfectly legitimate business. So legitimate, in fact, its parent company, United Health Group, is the 5th largest corporation in the world by revenue. Yet even though it's legal, the difference between the American health insurance industry and the Mafia isn't morality, it's paperwork. That doesn't mean that either man's killing was justified. They both had families and friends and the same intrinsic right to live that everyone else does. But there is a reason that the obligatory condemnation of Thompson's murder is so often followed by a but.
Murdering a healthcare executive is completely unacceptable. The online discourse that has followed that murder is ghoulish and ghastly. But
over and over, violence is never the answer. This guy gets a trial who's allegedly killed the CEO of United Health. But you can only push people so far.
The need for that but lies in the fact that Thompson, like Castellano, made a fortune running a predatory business.
People are being killed through PDF files and through claim denial letters and through a deliberate practice of saying no to a certain form of care that you know you're going to end up granting, but if you say no, 80% of people will lose steam and not appeal successfully, and you'll only have to give it to 20% of those people, and you factor that into your balance sheet. And if that is not an incidental thing that happens or bad apples, that's actually how you make money, because the health insurance industry is an industry that doesn't really exist in many other countries because they just take care of each other as part of the society. You cannot expect to live in a society in which that rage goes nowhere, just fizzles out and dissipates. And we have to deplore violence and then be curious about where it's coming from.
The American health insurance industry has built its business model on 3 words: delay, deny, defend. Delay treatment authorizations, deny legitimate claims, defend those denials in court until patients give up or die. United Healthcare, under Thompson's leadership, had the highest claim denial rate in the industry. The company used AI algorithms to automatically reject claims, knowing most people wouldn't appeal. When they did, the process was designed to be so exhausting that many abandoned their fight for coverage they'd already paid for. The result? People are either financially ruined by healthcare costs or denied treatment entirely. This is extortion, but there is no risk of imprisonment. The Mafia would call that a beautiful business model. The lack of sympathy for their deaths is a reflection of the same indifference that they felt for others. This was even true of Castellano's Mafia associates, who went along with John Gotti's decision to take him out because they all agreed that the boss was too greedy. The murder of Paul Castellano helps explain why there is so little sympathy for Brian Thompson, but it doesn't explain the public's embrace of the alleged killer. Luigi Mangione allegedly used violence as a means of resisting a ruthless, even cruel institution. And for that, he created a deeply polarized response, where some commend him for standing up to injustice, while others condemn him as a cold-blooded murderer.
There is no heroism in what Mangione did. This was a senseless act of violence. It was a cold and calculated crime that stole a life and put New Yorkers at risk.
This is very similar to what happened on June 28, 1914 in Sarajevo, when Bosnian Serb student Gavrilo Princip assassinated Archduke Franz Ferdinand and his wife Sophie. Princip, a devoted Serbian nationalist, detested that his people were subjugated by the Austro-Hungarian Empire based in Vienna. Archduke Ferdinand, as the presumptive heir of that empire visiting to oversee a military exercise, represented everything Princip stood against. At his trial, when the prosecutor asked Princip why he shot the Archduke, he replied, People suffer because they are so poor and because they are treated as animals. I am the son of a peasant. I know how people live in the villages, and that is why I wanted revenge. This type of ideological motivation clearly parallels the motive behind Thompson's murder.
Forensics teams found engravings on the shell casings and live rounds recovered at the scene, with the words deny, defend, and depose, startlingly similar to the title of this book, critical of the health insurance industry and published 14 years ago by a Rutgers law professor.
The reactions to both Princip and alleged killer Luigi Mangione are similarly intense and highly polarized. Some see terrorists, others see folk heroes. Princip became a symbol of Serbian nationalism, celebrated by Serbs and condemned by those who view that nationalism as oppressive. Mangione is undergoing the same contested transformation. Although we know that Archduke Franz Ferdinand's assassination lit the spark that ignited World War I, it's impossible to tell what will come of Brian Thompson's murder. However, it has created a growing demand for the health insurance conglomerate that Thompson ran to be treated as the same criminal enterprise as the one led by Castellano. The link between the two businesses helps explain why, despite all the condemnations, so many people whispered, "Murder is wrong, but..."